let's jump into Andor, episode 7. Crazy stuff, guys. Let's get into this show. Jacob, we didn't get to really hear your thoughts about the last few episodes, so just give us a brief overview of how you're feeling so far in the show up to episode 7.
Yeah, boy, this is going to be hard to differentiate because I binged these two story arcs.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, I'm not even sure where to split.
Well, that's okay.
I just watched it.
Just give us your review
of the 8 hours
of thus far.
This definitely feels like the meat of the season. I've got a feeling the last 3 episodes are going to be a lot of kind of final setup and just a couple conclusions. This definitely feels like it was like the main events. God, I don't even know where to start.
Dude, I'm hearing that apparently the story's just getting started, though.
That's great. See, here's the thing, though. You're hearing that. Who's seen it? You know, I guess critics actually watched the whole season.
Some people have watched it all the way through already.
You're right. Critics reviewed the entire season beforehand. So, okay, I'll give you that. But okay, so it's everything with Gorman. It really feels like one 6-episode story arc, honestly.
Yeah.
So, I don't know where to start. You're gonna have to prompt a little.
Yeah, it's all good. Let's jump into episode 7.
A lot of stuff to binge. Really.
Yeah, tension is building around the situation on Gorman and a planet the Empire. They're targeting it for strategic purposes, and the Empire spreads propaganda painting the Gormans as dangerous, causing unease even among Imperials, and a sense of dread looms as plans begin to escalate, setting up the coming massacre, which was episode 8. But yeah, episode 7, how did you guys feel about this? This is kind of setting up Yavin, and we have Andor on Yavin. He's finally slowly getting a part of the Rebel Alliance, you know? We have this Force user scene as well, which I thought was a little interesting because Luke is supposed to be...
so dumb. I'm sorry.
I thought it was kind of... I didn't like it because I feel like Luke is supposed to be an anomaly.
Well, and they always keep trying to throw in this Force healing. I'm like, okay, it works, but not during this time. You know?
Disney's all about the Force healing. But Jake, how did you feel? Yeah,
too. I don't think it's too... It sounds like... Because he was saying she was just like a cook in the mess hall, and there's like 4 guys just sitting around like watching. It sounds like it's not something that's really known. It doesn't sound to me like she's like the rebellion's Force healer. It sounds like it's just like maybe 4 or 5 people being like, yeah, you know, it's like if your like school lunch lady was like reading tarot cards. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like she's that powerful or anything. She doesn't really know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that, because Luke comes in and he's bona fide. You know, I mean, he's goated. You know, the things he's going to do, and But yeah, it was an interesting scene. I guess it was just being used to set up kind of where he is mentally. But I'm wondering,
he's a messenger, which is kind of leading up to Rogue One, I think.
Yeah, but right? What's so irritating is not everyone needs their own prophecy. Like, I'm sorry, like Cassian Andor did not need to be like, oh, you're gonna be a messenger. Like, yeah, give me a break. Like, he's just a rebel. Like, but anyway.
Jake, how do you feel about that?
You know, like I was saying, I was just kind of like, what's the point? You know, why'd they write the scene? You know, usually the scenes are pretty important. You know, there's not a lot of filler. So, you know, I guess it was just kind of trying to get in his headspace a little bit. But maybe they were sitting around and they were like, well, Cassian doesn't, you know, as a character is not going to talk to anybody. So they were like, maybe we just need to come up with a way for someone to worm in his head.
He really wouldn't. That is such his character. Like,
you know what I mean?
I just want to be left alone. Like,
yeah, he's very quiet.
I'll go do my mission and come home. You know? And
they're like, so maybe that's it. But yeah, I kind of forgot about the scene until I just saw it.
What else happens? We get Mon Mothma. She is trying to advocate for Gorman in the Senate with talking to a bunch of different senators. What else is happening? I can't remember.
There wasn't a lot. It was a lot of setup for...
This is a big Gorman setup episode for
this
Gorman.
This episode struck me as like really short, but we were like binging them like crazy, and some were like an hour long, and this one was like 40 minutes, so it ended, and I was like, what? Okay, next one.
Yeah.
Hey, so did you guys talk about the Gorman massacre next week? Not the one that we're about to talk about, but the Tarkin one?
We mentioned that. That was crazy.
Yeah, so because that's like, did you guys talk about how that's like an old like thing from like an old book?
Oh, it is? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's from like a rebel, it's like your rebel like handbook. It's from the 80s. And it's just like, there's a part that mentions like, it's like a debrief on like Grand Moff Tarkin. And what it says in the book is that Grand Moff Tarkin, soon after the formation of the Empire, was going to Gorman, and it's exactly how they described it in the show. They pretty much brought it back into canon.
Nice.
He went there and he wanted to land a ship. Protesters wouldn't move, so he landed it on them. So that's and then a bunch of expanded universe, which are now Legends books, in the 90s would reference that event as something that happened. So I remember when they said, one of the episode titles was like, "Have you ever heard of Gorman? Have you ever been to Gorman?" People instantly were like, "Whoa!" And then they reference it. So
they also reference it in Rebels, which we'll talk about too.
Yeah, and apparently they reference that event in Rebels, which I don't remember, but
they reference the whole speech too with Mon Mothma, which we'll get to. That's so cool.
We'll get to that. Yeah, let's jump into episode 8 first.
Episode 8 is the actual. Oh my gosh, this picture. The Gorman massacre occurs after a peaceful protest turns into violent due to the Empire's manipulations. Cassian attempts an assassination on Dedra Nero, but chaos erupts when the Empire cracks down on the demonstrators. And the action is emotionally devastating rather than thrilling, and the episode ends with a haunting montage. So, how'd you guys feel about this episode? It starts out, the Gormans... they all want to be there, but the main guy is like, don't do it, don't go there, it's a trap, but they end up still having this peaceful protest, and it escalates.
We finally got some action.
Yes.
And I liked everything until Cyril Karn. This was terrible to me. It felt like a waste of his whole character arc, like everything.
I thought they were going to redeem him, and he was going to become a rebel, one of the best rebels.
Well, and even if they didn't do that, at least some kind of because he was finally questioning,
the Empire. Yeah,
he was questioning everything, but then he sees Cassian Andor, and he completely flips, and he's going crazy. But then,
I guess it just shows.
Then he gets killed by the Gorman guy. I was like, okay, they didn't have that much beef. I was just like, this just felt like everything from season 1. Through this, his story arc in season 2 has been my favorite up to this point.
Yeah,
and then you just kind of kill him, and I'm like, okay, no, I wasn't following it.
I was sad about it. I was sad about it.
I think it's a waste of his character.
I thought they were gonna redeem him, but I can see why he did it because he hated Cassian so much. I guess he thought Cassian was Axis. Am I correct in that?
Yeah. So the whole time, I'll start before I start saying anything that I loved this ending for him. Because the whole season, we just haven't been able to get a read. We're like, is he questioning things, or does he love being important to the ISB? And obviously we could figure out he loved being important. But the whole thing, remember, they were trying to lure in outside instigators. He was like, that's what I'm here, right? That's all we're doing here. We're luring in outside instigators. He's obsessed with that's his mission, right? So then he starts hearing about mining things and
he gets angry.
Like that, and he's like, what the heck is going on here? He realizes he's been used, and Wade, you're right that this is his journey up until, because obviously we've known he's such a rule follower, such a stickler for the rules. Of course he's going to help the Empire, but he has no idea that the ISB is, really manipulative and really kind of a different type of twisted evil, where they're very, a lot of ulterior dark motives. He just thinks he's trying to lure in, the real bad guys to him. So he finds out he's been used, and then it seems like his character arc ends right there in the thing, right? Like you're thinking he's going to be redeemed. That's what I was thinking too.
But then he chokes out Dedra too. That I was like, dude, this guy's not a good guy though.
That was pretty dark. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not saying he's a good person. Just that he's a stickler for the rules.
Yeah.
But then he sees Cassian, and because he sees Cassian and he thinks Cassian is the outside instigator. He's like, all this time, this is what I've been working for. I've been here for what? He's been there 2 years now, trying to lure in an outside instigator, and it's the guy that he had hunted for a year earlier, and he just goes berserk. He said, I think he knows he's not getting out of that plaza. He knows there's nothing left, and I
thought it was the one thing I did think was funny was that Cassian didn't even know who he is.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
You didn't like that? I thought it was.
No.
It kind of just showed like.
It just made me like, oh, so his character is not that important to.
Yeah, I guess
anything, you know,
he's
like who are you even? Like, okay, yeah, you're just a nobody.
they did.
Well, that's kind of
yeah.
the tragedy of his character. You know, he literally burnt his life for this goal, and it meant nothing. And that's what his service to the Empire got him. Nothing. He could have stuck in his corporate world and maybe tried to find some sort of meaning, but he burned his life for the Empire, and it gave him a pitiful death, a pretty lame death, and
Yeah.
no sort of closure. He thinks that this is, he's in that square. He knows things are over. He doesn't want to go back to Deidre. She's the only one who would save him. If he stays there, he's going to die. He figures I might as well. This guy that I've hated, I've known it was him for so long. And then just finally have, who are you? He just realizes everything he's done is in vain. And that's the kind of thing that you get when you serve, the Empire, when you serve evil, is there's no meat, there's no substance.
There's no glory either, really.
There's no glory. And Wade, I think that's why you're kind of disappointed, is because you know that if he had maybe escaped and said, I know everything the Empire is doing, I was an agent for them, I can help so much, there's good, there's substance. That's something that means something. But he denied it, and he gave into vengeance, and he got nothing in return. So I think it's frustrating you, Wade, because there's that potential of good, but he just gives in to the darkest desires and chooses.
Yeah, but he hesitates to even shoot him at the very, very end. And I'm like, okay, so maybe we're going to go somewhere, and he's going to help, and then just dead. And yeah, like you said, that's probably the reason, but it's still like, I just feel like we wasted a whole lot of time watching his whole story. We liked his passion for the Empire and his passion for everything, and it's just kind of like,
it's interesting, like the whole.
It kind of is like real life. Like people just die in tragic ways, and things happen, and I don't know.
That's the thing. Do you think he lived up to his mom's expectations as being like worthless? He's been told that his whole life, kind of thing,
dude,
and then
that hurts me too. Yeah, like his mother.
It's a really tough story, because there's so many times he could have done something good and just chose not to, and it's frustrating to watch as a character. And I know what you're talking about too, because talk about the most fun character to watch. His supporting characters are great. I mean, he's been here since day one. His story is so tied to Andor's story, and that's why we followed it. He pretty much kickstarted Andor's rebellious streak back when he overreacted on Ferrix, and they've just been, going down two different streams but near same paths, and they came together in this huge moment, and Andor's going to go on, and he's going to help save the galaxy, and Cyril's lying dead in a bar in Gorman.
It is almost okay. Picture this. It's almost like picture Cassian's death. Picture Cyril Karn's death. Which one amounts? You got the Empire. You got the Rebel Alliance. Andor. Sacrifices his life for the greater good, getting those plans to the rebellion alliance, but then you have Cyril Karn, who it's amounted to nothing, and he tried he was the best of the best, mentally probably following the rules, but it amounted to absolutely nothing. I don't know if that is maybe what they're trying to do. I have no clue.
Yeah, because the theme of the whole show is rebellion, obviously, and all that, and there wasn't an inkling of rebellion in Cyril's body. He wouldn't do anything if it wasn't.
Yeah.
And to him, that means siding with the bad guys. And even though his conscience maybe kicks in at the end, he still just can't shake everything, all the darkness that has seeped into him while he's been with them. It's a pretty interesting character study to me. On
the other problem I was gonna say is Dedra herself. When she breaks down, I was like,
she's conflicted. Yeah.
No, I don't like it though, because usually all these Empire people are very get to work.
They're really trying to.
I get they're trying to show her humanity.
They're trying to make her like a Nazi, where they like were just blindly following and didn't actually see like some of the awful terrors.
Well, and that's what I think she should have been more like that. I don't know. Yeah. Just her character didn't seem to me like to break down, and maybe it's because she actually did love Cyril, and maybe that's how I had to tell myself, because it just her breaking down because of the massacre. If that was the case, I was like, no. Do
you think it was more so because she was
her character has been like this, kind of hard focused and unfeeling towards anyone else, who's against her. So
do you think it was more so that Cyril found out that she broke down and she I don't know, maybe she doesn't care. I have no clue.
It was after his death.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it was probably I think she loved Cyril, but he was also a really useful tool for her. So to have him take a position of scary power and attempt to kill her, or threaten to kill her, I guess, I think that kind of flipped her whole perception of the situation on her head. I don't think she was really freaking out about what she did. I think she would have killed everyone in that square. And because remember, what she was saying the whole time was, "We're gonna go home. This is gonna be it."
Like, that's true.
I'm gonna get promoted. We're gonna get so many accolades. Look at this life we're gonna have because of all these people dying. She doesn't. I don't think she cares about the massacre. I think she's shocked because this massacre was supposed to be her ticket to go live her life with Cyril as a relaxed, cushy officer, and instead he threatened to kill her and ran out into the massacre. So her whole plan just got flipped on its head. And I don't think she's planned everything so much. I don't think she knew how to comprehend it,
So
that makes me rethink it a little bit. Yeah.
Some positives about the episode that I liked were that the very beginning they bring in these like crappy Imperial like dudes with shields, what are they called, like riot control basically, and she's like, they look like children, they look like little boys, and they literally brought them in to incite more chaos. You know what I mean? And you notice the sniper starts fires the first shot at one of their own.
Yeah, that was good. That was really good, because that was them inciting it to make it look like they started it. The Gormans started it.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Very espionage, I like it. So, any other things about this episode?
Yeah, we got to get into this.
Oh.
Yes, dude, I'm telling you, because they had a bit of a fake out with one of these Imperial security droids in season 1. One of them arrested him.
Oh,
Is it K2? And it's like, no, but it was kind of establishing that they're in this world. But when Cyril ran into that bunker with all the other loved ones of the Imperials, and one of them just kind of broke character a bit and was like looking him up and down, I was like, that's him, right? Like, that's got to be.
I thought the same thing.
K2, the way he just flicked his eyes and everything. It
shows how terrifying they are.
Talk about they're, because dude, if you've played Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor, these things are hard to kill. They are ridiculous.
Yes, yeah.
And I literally was thinking that the whole time. I was like, wow, this is doing justice to the games, where the games, I think, are the only time you really see these guys in action, and they're pretty hard enemies. I mean, stormtroopers you can just slice through like butter. It's so much fun. But these guys you gotta dodge and parry a little bit.
Yeah.
And their kind of reign of destruction there was actually pretty freaky. The way they just
set them loose on all the Gormans, like man, killing all those rebels.
Well, they were like picking them up and like throwing them. I was like,
yes,
dang.
Yeah, wild. Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess one of them tries to kill Cassian, and he gets a first-hand look at how strong they are, and he's like,
hey, help me out. Let's take this broken one.
I can use that.
Yeah.
And so
also, he's going to need a friend with his breakup, which we'll talk about.
We'll get to that, too.
A little buddy.
Jacob, did you want to talk about the canon thing now or later?
We will. We'll do it at the end.
Okay.
File over here.
Sounds
Episode
good.
9. Mon Mothma publicly denounces the Empire in the Senate, prompting a covert rebellion extraction mission for her. The tone shifts to espionage, with Cassian helping her escape Coruscant. The emotional fallout and political impact are deeply felt, making this a standout installment. This has been my favorite episode so far.
I was gonna say this is the best episode of the show.
This episode was insane, and having it come right after the what I thought was going to be like maybe the climax of this story arc. Literally, they were able to have two, like climaxes of this story arc. They had the Gorman thing, and that was so many of the characters were involved in that, like Deidre and Cyril, Cassian, Willman, who we've been following a lot, who I thought was really cool.
Oh yeah,
so many characters had like the big parts of the story, but now we need Mon Mothma, who's one of the protagonists of the show.
She's the best character of this show by far.
This episode was just thrilling in such a different way. The episode 8 was pretty was like shocking.
Depressing.
I felt kind of like a little drained after it, and this was thrilling, like you said, in kind of an espionage escape way, which was just so cool. And for Cassian having to do these across the span of 2 days, one of the characters says to him at the end of the episode, like, he must be tired. And dude, this was exemplary.
The fact that they had Andor be the one to escort her out, I was like, okay, that was pretty sick. A good idea.
There's
to have him
there's
be the
one time in Rogue One that they interact. It's when Jyn Erso comes to Yavin 4 and meets Mon Mothma, and Mon Mothma says, "This is Captain Cassian Andor, Rebel Intelligence." And,
Dang.
And I watched Rogue One again after watching the first season, and I was like, these two people are, running the show, and here they are knowing each other in Rogue One. I was like, I know they're going to have to come together in season 2 of Andor. And what an electric way to bring pretty much the show's two leads together.
Okay, so we got to talk. She's like, she knows she has to deliver this speech, and then she's got to get out of there. So she's practicing the speech, but there's like listening devices everywhere. She can't do it in her office. She finds out her assistant works for Luthen, which she's kind of mad about. But also that Balin, not Balin, Bail Organa. Sorry, Bail Organa's like, people that are going to pick her up are apparently corrupt. Somehow Luthen knows. So that's a whole subplot as well, where actually one of them does turn out to be Imperial spy. And so that was pretty wild as well. But I did love her speech. Was probably my most favorite part of the show, where she's going in depth on all the massacres and talking about how where we mask evil basically as politics basically. We're doing this for this reason and blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, she talks about the person with the biggest stick or the biggest bully or the biggest monster is Emperor Palpatine. And then and all the stuff cuts out. I was like, oh my gosh, dude. It's so good.
Now,
so
I took
good.
this as this was like a speech just to the Senate. And then later she's like, I got to do another speech, and that was probably the one for Rebels. Is that right?
And that is shown in Rebels, yes.
Yeah, the one later, which she like projects out to the whole universe or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they say that. They say, like, you have to do another one.
You have to do another speech.
Yeah.
When they said that, that was like how I felt when they showed the ending of Dark Disciple at the beginning of Tales of the Underworld.
Yeah.
I just felt like, what a cool thing to add one throwaway line to just gel, To be like, look, we know in Rebels that Gold Squadron takes her to Yavin and she makes a speech to the galaxy.
Gold Squadron, baby, let's go.
Yeah. So they were like, someone else is going to take her, and she has to make a speech on the way. They didn't have to say that. It didn't add anything to the episode.
And in the speech,
it respected Rebels, which showed this event from a certain point of view.
Yeah.
And it respected that it came before, while still, adding its own flavor to it.
Yeah, and I love how Luthen's like, the person that gets you will say, "You have I have friends everywhere," and it turns out it's Andor. Obviously, He says it, takes her, and I love how he's shooting people, and she's like freaking out because she's like a senator. I mean, she's like not involved in anything violent at all whatsoever. So it is interesting to see that contrast of like, Cassian's life is very different, but they're both very high up rebels, basically.
Dude, I loved when he was escorting her out of the building, and then the guy comes up who's like the corrupt one who's supposed to get her, and he's like, "Oh, what's his name? Cloris? Oh, hey, Cloris, we're over here!" He just kills him like, "Holy cow!"
This felt a lot like, to me, like in Better Call Saul, when Mike and Jimmy's stories would team up and they do an episode together, like maybe season, where it's just kind of like these two people in the same show are doing their own thing and what's essentially, two different stories, even though they're in the same show. But every once in a while they team up. This felt a lot like that. where you get these awesome characters that you know well get to meet each other. It's like when you have a friend and you have another friend and you get to introduce them to each other.
Yeah. I just love how everything is gelling so well with Rogue One and Rebels and all. It makes you feel awesome as a fan, you know.
Yeah, they like are actually respecting it. Like I was getting nervous that they weren't going to do anything like that with Mon Mothma, and the fact that they just fully
And
went all on board on it.
I never even realized in Rebels she's talking to like them about Gorman, the Gorman massacre. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so
and that's like
Does
how
she
long
say
ago?
Gorman, or does she just say? Gorman.
She says the Gorman massacre. I just watched the episode.
Oh dang!
Pretty wild, dude. I was like, dang, this stuff. It's like really tying together really well.
And that just shows a lot of love from the creators. You know, obviously the Gorman massacres, when they put it in Rebels, was a fun reference to the dark incident that happened. You know,
with Grand Moff Tarkin, yeah.
And now it shows that, you know, Tony Gilroy and his writing team really respect what's come before, and been like, you know, Mon Mothma mentioned this. This was a thing in old, you know, Legends Star Wars. Let's use it. You know what I mean? Obviously, they've added, you know, 95% of the stuff to it.
Yeah.
But that 5% of referencing what came before goes such a long way to people like us, and I really respect it.
I'm assuming Dave Filoni was like, you got to do the Gorman massacre. Because, like,
Yeah,
he referenced Mon Mothma talks about it. He must have said something like...
And since Dave Filoni is, like, head of creative at Lucasfilm now, it is likely that he said, hey, if you're going to... You know, maybe there's a chance that Tony Gilroy came up with this story about this planet, and it's pretty much what we know, and Dave Filoni was like, name it Gorman. Trust me. Trust me. Like, this is fantastic. Although,
awesome.
they actually talk about the Tarkin thing pretty heavily in the show, so it's likely it wasn't just slapped on. So
it's a mix of both, for sure.
Really cool stuff.
Cassian accomplishes it, you know, gets her to safety. I loved how the Imperials were trying to turn off the broadcast of the Senate, but they couldn't do it in time before she says Emperor Palpatine. I thought Emperor Palpatine was going to come up. That would have been cool. That happens in Bad Batch, I think, right? Where he comes up, right? Out of the Senate chambers. That would have been really cool to have a cameo, but maybe they're saving some juice for the last little bit of the show. Maybe we're going to see a lightsaber next week. I would love to see Darth Vader. You don't think it's going to happen?
I don't think the show needs it. I think the show has its own threads to wrap up.
Yeah. But what happens next? Bix leaves Cassian because he says he's done with the rebellion. But she said, like, she basically breaks up with him so he'll stay in the rebellion. I was like, okay, I don't really know what that means, but I guess she knew, like, he's too important.
I took it as they didn't want to kill off her character, so this is the only way to not kill her off, but like get her out of the picture, because Cassian does have to be he has to be all in for the Empire.
Yeah, yeah, you know, I haven't really thought about this scene too much or that character decision, but you know, it's interesting. It's an interesting way to try to keep Cassian there.
Only question mark with it is, like, you know, Cassian's just like really willing and ready to die, you know, so I'm like, he's not like super trying hard to get back, you know, because he's got to see Bix one more time. So I am questioning, you know, if they do something else with her in the next 3 episodes.
I guess we will see.
I think so. I don't think their story is done.
Am I missing anything else, guys?
Very end of the episode, we meet K2.
That's right. Yeah, they reboot his system.
They reboot him, and they're ready to put him down just in case, and instead he's himself. You know, he's like, please don't point that at me.
I'm excited because he's a standout from Rogue One, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think they'll keep his humor? Because
I think they did even at the end of that episode when he was like, please don't point your weapon at me, you know?
Yeah.
It's and I think his kind of humor is going to be an interesting addition to the tone of the show.
For sure. And I watched an interview with Alan Tudyk, and apparently him and Cassian got to like ad-lib a little bit, so hopefully there is some humor there. Yeah, for sure. Cool. I'm excited for next week. That last episode got me hype, honestly, with the Mon Mothma stuff. A lot of it has been a little slow for me, but yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You want to talk some cannon fodder real quick?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's jump back in.
All right. So are we done covering the episode?
Yep.
Okay.
We have Thunderbolts after this though.
Okay, I'll be quick. So here I've got two collections of media here. We talked about Dark Disciple, the book about Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Voss. Can I mirror this screen so you can see the
I don't
cover?
know.
Settings.
I can do this. Let me
Video.
get you big.
Mirror camera. Okay, I got it.
Cool.
Here we go. This is what I really look like. All right, so here's Dark Disciple. Obviously, we talked about this book.
Nice.
And here I've got season 3 of Star Wars Rebels and the comic adaptation of Rogue One, which features a one-shot comic called Cassian and K2SO. Here's the cover for it. Now, this came out in 2016, and it came out along with the comic adaptation of the movie, and it tells the story of how Cassian and K2SO met. And it tells little, this is how long it is. It's a 20-page one-shot about Cassian going to save 2 rebels who kind of got a little in over their heads. They're like twins or whatever. And along the way, they get stopped by these Imperial security droids, and Cassian manages to flick the switch on one of them and command him to fight all the Imperials, and then he takes them with him.
Uh-oh.
So,
what happened?
Yikes.
So here's the thing. I'm a pretty big proponent of sticking to what's come before, right? But I think this week, 2 new Star Wars things showed that there's pros and cons to that. So, Tales of the Underworld stuck to Dark Disciple like it was gospel. They literally showed the end of the book at the beginning of the show. And that was awesome. But because of what they stuck to, they weren't able to do anything interesting. They just kind of had to spin their wheels and say, yeah, well,
she's alive now.
She's alive now, you know.
She's alive now.
The interesting stuff, the page-turning stuff has already happened and might already be in the future. They stuck to this so well that they didn't know what to do. Maybe there's something in the future, but it held them back sticking to it.
Huh.
Now, I would argue maybe that didn't even need to exist as Tales of the Underworld. If they're going to make a Path show, if it's going to be an Asajj and Voss-led show, maybe this could have been the first episode of it. But as it stands right now, it seemed kind of pointless. Now, I'm not saying it was bad per se, but this
wasn't super interesting.
Yeah. Now, over here we've got season 3 of Rebels, and we've got this K2SO and Cassian one shot. Both things that Andor had to work with in the past week. I actually came in pretty prepared to because I heard online you're not going to see anything. I heard that Mon Mothma's Declaration of Independence pretty much was going to be in the story arc. So I actually came prepared to talk about Rebels, but they actually did a great job of that. So we're going to leave it out of the equation.
Oh, good.
But I'm going to talk about the K2SO. They did a phenomenal job of working it in with Rebels. Yeah,
they did.
I was really impressed. But we're going to talk about this one-shot comic. It's hard to say that you can just overwrite something that used to be canon because you want to tell a better story. But I think when they wrote this in 2016, they never thought they were going to do anything else with this character.
Yeah.
Cassian was not a side character, but he was like the not main protagonist in a one-off spin-off prequel movie. Who on earth would have thought that we would have gotten 16 hours of details about his life? So I don't blame Lucas for saying, hey, write a little funny one-shot about how Cassian and K2 met, and we'll throw it in the comic adaptation. It'll be fun. I don't blame them for writing that, and I don't blame Tony Gilroy and his team for saying, we're not doing that, and we know, and I think it's great that we have this, we know that they can look at source material and say, yes, we're working in this world. This is an event that happened, and we're going to have to tweak a couple of the minor details, but we're gonna make it work, But you have to think that they were aware of this one-shot comic book at the end of the adaptation, And you have to think that they went to Lucasfilm with the decision like, can we steamroll it? Can we pretend it didn't exist? And I'm glad they did. I think they probably already had to, as writers, they probably weren't too happy trying to fit it in with Rebels. You know how creatives can be.
Yeah.
I'm happy that whether it was their decision or Dave Filoni's decision as the VP of creative at Lucasfilm that they made it work. But I'm at the end of the day, until I reread it a couple days ago in prep for this, I had forgotten everything about that one shot. I just remembered he went on a mission, he turned him on, and he brought him with him. As far as I'm concerned, that's the bones. Who cares about these two twins that showed up for 5 pages and never showed up again?
Yeah.
You might say it's a slippery slope. I'm pretty big on what's come before should be recognized. But, really, I don't think anything that was in here really needed to be observed or adapted. So they totally steamrolled it. It's technically not canon anymore, I guess, and I don't think that was the wrong thing to do.
That's interesting because it's like it was probably more interesting the way they did K2SO's introduction than that comic versus that other canon where they stuck to the canon, but it wasn't as interesting of a story. It's an interesting...
Yeah. The real question after all of this is, how do you feel about Kiadi-Mundi's age in Acolyte? Did you hear how angry people were about that? It's so funny.
Whatever.
They're like, he would have been a baby. Like, he wouldn't have even been born.
And that's crazy.
You don't read Wikipedia?
Yeah. So
that show was bad, though. By the way, I will just say.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other thing. But yeah. So,
I will stand firm on that one.
They stuck to canon to their detriment once this week, and they steamrolled canon to their benefit another time this week. And I never thought that's the kind of thing that would give me those responses, but they did. So
interesting.
We'll see what happens in the future. I kind of anticipated this ever since they even announced the show. So I wasn't really upset about it. Wasn't really attached to it. I don't think this little comic was that important. And honestly, what I was prepared to say about Rebels if they changed Mon Mothma's story was when they made Rebels 4 years ago, they thought they were telling the story, the definitive story of the building of the Rebel Alliance. And now they have a chance to add to it, and they never thought they would. I was going to forgive them for taking some liberties, but I'm really impressed with how they made it work.
That's a standout for me. Sweet, guys. We did it. Next week is the finale? Is that true?
Next week is the final 4.
Final
three.
Four?
Final 3.
Oh,
sorry.
4 would have been nice.